from the peanut butter nougat and that caramel layer. Oh, this cake is absolute perfection. Well, we sure have an incredible amount of ingredients for this cake, but don't be discouraged. I am going to break it down to each individual recipe. We're gonna just take it step by step, and you're going to see how easy it is to make this amazing Snickers salted caramel cake. Also known as the wacky cake. I'm sure you guys have heard about it or have made a wacky cake before. Now, I've been making this recipe since probably about 2014. This was actually my first vegan recipe that I ever tried, and I have tweaked it up over the years to perfect it. So if you haven't tried my particular recipe for wacky cake, you really should. So why is it called a wacky cake? Because if we implement everything that we have learned about baking throughout our baking history, we would assume that it just shouldn't work. So it's kind of wacky that this cake recipe actually works without eggs. But not only does it work, it is absolutely amazing. This cake recipe, like I said, I made it way back in 2014. And I made it for my mom and stepfather when I went to visit them in Florida one year. And to this day, he is still asking for this cake recipe. It was just his birthday a couple weeks ago. And he said, "Will you make me that chocolate cake that you made way back when?" He said, "Just don't put any of that icing on there. I just want to eat the cake." And so I did. I made him a bundt cake out of this exact recipe, and he absolutely loved it. So what did I do? I had my sugar in the bowl. I have two different kinds of flour, which probably is what sets my recipe apart from other wacky cake recipes that you might see. I like to use a combination of all-purpose flour and cake flour together. I've added natural cocoa powder into the recipe. There was some baking powder and some salt. And the sugar was in there as well. Now, I always like to add the sugar to the dry ingredients in a recipe like this, because then when you pour in the liquids, you're not going to get those annoying, make sure you spill it all over the table, otherwise the recipe doesn't work the right way. If you don't mix the sugar throughout the flour in the beginning of the recipe, and then you go ahead and try to pour the liquid ingredients into that, you have a tendency to get like those annoying flour balls that will not mix out. So by coating the flour and the dry ingredients through the sugar in the first stage of mixing, you're going to get a super smooth batter. So I did pour as much coffee as I had, and the rest of it went on the table. A strong brewed coffee is what makes chocolate cakes really pop, and I know a lot of people are against using coffee. They feel like it's going to make their cake taste like coffee, and this is just not true. Coffee and chocolate play together in perfect harmony, bringing out the best in the chocolate, believe it or not. So if you are totally against using it, though, you can just leave that out and use water instead, which was what I had brewed the coffee with. A little bit of vanilla extract there, and that's how simple it is to make my best recipe for vegan chocolate cake. It's so easy, it's so delicious. So there you go, one recipe is down, and we're gonna get that into the oven as soon as I clean up my table here, and then we're gonna move on to the peanut butter nougat and the caramel. So while that cake is baking, we can mix up the really quick peanut butter nougat recipe, which is going to be part of the filling for this cake. It's simply creamy peanut butter with a little bit of agave syrup, and I'm using crushed up graham cracker crumbs, but I have in the past used almond flour or coconut flour even works great. It's just something that kind of makes like a sandier texture that will mimic a nougat, because this is not a true nougat where we're boiling a sugar syrup and pouring it into whipping aquafaba, which is a true nougat that then has nuts folded in. But what we're doing is trying to mimic that creamy nougat that's in a Snickers candy bar. So that's how simple. You could add a little bit of vanilla extract to that if you'd like, but otherwise it really is just a 3-ingredient nougat that, as you see, mixes up in like a minute, right? So don't get overwhelmed by the amount of recipes that goes into finishing this final cake. So much of it, well, all of it can be done while the cake is baking. And we're rolling right into the third recipe. So this is what I mean. I've whipped up my best, easiest recipe for vegan buttercream, which happens to be my American style recipe. And I'm adding some peanut butter powder to that. And that's really how easy it is to make a peanut butter buttercream, which is going to be the crumb coating, well, the outside icing of this cake. I'm not going to use too much of this. It's sort of just going to be what's going to hold everything together. Now, if you didn't have peanut butter powder, you could definitely just add some creamy peanut butter instead, but I love the peanut butter powder because there's really very minimal fat compared to a jar of peanut butter. So I don't really love adding more fat to a recipe that is really nothing but fat. So pick your poison, and we have recipe number 3 already done. So I am going to trim off, ooh, look at that cake. This is one amazing cake recipe, you guys. But I am trimming off just the little top rim of it because I want all of my layers to be perfectly level and the same size. So with a sharp serrated knife, you can do that pretty easily just by doing a sawing motion and going around the whole entire cake. Normally, I like to make my cake layers one day in advance and let them sit in the refrigerator overnight, and that way it really reduces any crumbs like what you're seeing here. But this is not too terrible. And as you see, I mean, this could be considered waste to a lot of you, but I never waste any of my cake scraps. I have a freezer full of cake scraps and various other things that I'll always turn into something else. Additionally, though, this probably could have made 4 7-inch layers instead of 3, but I really wanted to stick with the 3 because there's going to be so much filling going on in this cake that I didn't want it to be super tall. So I did want to just mention really quick that this cake recipe today is dedicated to one of my longtime supporters, Daisy, who has been with me for very many years, and she is one of my patrons, and she helps support the channel every month. She recently contacted me asking me if I had a salted caramel cake, which I don't specifically have, but I said, wow, that is perfect timing, because I am about to make a Snickers cake, which is essentially the same thing. I mean, if you left out the peanut butter nougat part and replaced the peanut butter buttercream with a caramel buttercream, you've got yourself a salted caramel cake. So Daisy, this one's for you. I hope that you will go ahead and deconstruct this Snickers cake and then just make yourself a beautiful caramel cake for your husband's birthday. And thank you so much, as always, for helping to support the channel. You've been here for so long, and it is so much appreciated. And thank you, of course, to all of my other patrons who have been supporting as well. You guys really are the best. But I'm so distracted and I'm talking too much that is not what I wanted for my first layer. I wanted my peanut nougat to be the bottom layer for this cake, not the caramel. So let me just do a little switcheroo there. I am still going to do the peanut butter buttercream rim, but I wanted my peanut nougat to be the bottom layer because, as you see, this is really thick and it's going to just be sturdier for the bottom portion rather than the slippery caramel. So that's the intention behind that, but I got to talking so much that I kind of lost my mind. So yeah, peanut nougat for the bottom layer, and this is going to be what's going to hold this whole cake in place. I've also got some crushed up roasted peanuts as well. This is a true Snicker cake. This is actually a straight up play off of my original Snickers brownie that I did several years ago. So this is all the same recipes that I incorporated into that brownie, only obviously instead of a brownie, we're making a layer cake. I am going to close all of that in with just another thin layer of the buttercream. So as you can probably start to see is that if you have the best base recipes, you can pretty much create hundreds of different kinds of combinations of layer cakes. So while this isn't a straight up salted caramel cake, I hope that you do understand how you can really just interchange and play around with some of the recipes to make it your own. So the tricky part is going to be if I can get this layer on here that I've already iced with buttercream. But yeah, this cake recipe is so amazing to work with, you guys. Not only does it taste amazing, it's super easy, but it's really got an awesome crumb to it. It's very sturdy. It's a little lopsided there. That's what you get for talking too much. One more layer of the roasted peanuts, and then the caramel gets covered all over the top of that. Each slice of this cake is going to be dripping with caramel. So this is one unbelievable cake project. I'm not gonna lie, there is a lot going on right here in this cake, and it's going to be worth every minute, I promise you. There really are quite a lot of recipes, as I am half the day spent actually making this cake. Like I said, I normally do like to prepare at least my cake layers and buttercream the day before, which I didn't do today. So I rarely go at a cake like this all on one day from start to finish. And I guess that's what's making it seem like such an unbelievable project, because I'm literally doing all of this from start to finish all on one day. So I really would recommend to break this up into 2 days. Definitely bake your cake layers the day before. You can do the caramel like a month ahead of time. Seriously, caramel stays in the refrigerator indefinitely, and it actually gets thicker as it sits in the fridge. So that's a plus. The peanut butter nougat, I mean, that was so simple. That literally took me 1 minute to put together. So it's 5 recipes, which, you know, that's a lot. That's a lot of advanced prep work. So I'm really not going to lie and say, oh my God, you guys, it's so easy. You just have to make this. It's not like a simple 2 recipe cake to execute. So not to intimidate you, but it would be way easier to pull this cake off if you do break it up into 2 days. So So I think I've talked enough about the making of this cake. Let's just enjoy the final touches. Everyone loves a good drip cake, right? So sit back, relax, and let's finish this cake. Each bite is better than the last. This cake is packed. Oh my God, you guys, this literally takes a whole day to make, but I assure you it is worth every minute. From the peanut butter nougat and that caramel layer, oh, this cake is absolute perfection. So I really hope that you will go grab the recipe at Gretchen'sVeganBakery.com. Thanks so much for being here with me and checking out my videos. So I don't know, Daisy, if you're gonna just do salted caramel or if you are going to go the extra mile and make this amazing Snickers cake. Let me know below. Comment below, guys. Let me know if you are up for this challenge. And as always, thank you so much to everyone supporting the channel, liking, subscribing, and sharing my videos, and especially my patrons on Patreon and my PayPal pals. You guys are the ones that are making all of this possible to keep me running to the store, grabbing ingredients, testing and testing again, and getting all of these recipes out to everyone for free. So really, thank you is never enough. So until next time, guys, happy vegan baking. Bye for now.